Can you imagine trading Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Jameer Gibbs, and Trey McBride? What do you think your team would look like? If you came up with something like this with these picks, play the lottery right now. In all seriousness, let's dive into 9 lessons ranging from startup strategy to trade strategy to general dynasty strategy and philosophy as to how I was able to build this dynasty. Assess value. Lesson number 1, be a value assessor. This ranges from understanding if depth really matters, getting a sense of how many starters are in your lineup, understanding, gauging positional value. Well, in Superflex leagues, obviously we know quarterbacks are king. In half PPR, any PPR format really, we know, of course, pass catchers are king. In this league, it was a start 2 tight end. So tight end values plus a point 0.5 premium, how do they make sense? How do we factor all of it? At a minimum, at least value the picks themselves. For example, do not do what I did and trade away a Justin Jefferson in round 2 after picking a Josh Allen, hitting home runs, and then just throwing wild pitches, passed balls. Getting a Devontae Smith plus ancillary mid-late round pick swaps for a top 24 pick. Understand, assess value in the sense that what is the perceived value therein of all your league mates? Where are players going? What position are they valuing? This starts to form their tendencies, their initial rationale for you to then observe and then respond to throughout your first year and beyond. Know who you're playing with. The startup draft is as unique and as significant of an informational tool to take with you beyond just the startup draft and to guide potential moves, trade partners, strategy in general, well beyond just this one specific draft. Lesson number 2, invest young or younger early. Dynasty is not redraft. It's so tough to shake that initial experience in that first inaugural startup. But by me sacrificing that and willing to play a relatively long game or at least make bets on younger players, i.e., well, a Justin Fields in the 4th, a Jalen Hurts in the 4th, guys that, to be clear, in 2021 were going into their first true season as starters in the NFL. Down the board, you go through and you find, if you're not doing it early, opportunities, especially later, with a Ramondre Stevenson, for example, in the 13th round. Rookie running backs, especially, and look, in this class where there's no Bijan and no Jameer Gibbs impending, mid-late round running backs, rookie running backs, not bad bets whatsoever. If you invest young, you're giving yourself liquidity, manufacturing, providing it to a degree that cannot be overlooked, understated. Say you make mistakes, you trade away a first, you trade away whatever degree of future assets, future capital. By investing in youth, you create future trade viability, short, medium, long-term trajectories far favor the youth than, say, a Stephon Diggs, who I picked in the early 3rd round. And to be clear, this was in 2021. If all else fails, be fluid but consistent in your startup draft. Don't be set on a specific player or players with your initial picks. Let the board dictate it for you. Don't lose sight of how you've then curated your team with your first set of picks, which I did so well with the cornerstone quarterback, a cornerstone receiver, then obviously traded him away. That move already discussed. But nonetheless, revisiting, okay, let me get 2 young quarterbacks in a Hurts, in a Fields. Then I was so rigid and inconsistent, even at this running back position. This stack of 4 green tiles, young running back, younger running back, older running back, just horrible. And you know what I did, which is even more just rookie move? I let past performance at the running back position dictate to a large degree my expectation for future success for these middling running backs, not even high end running backs, let alone. And so I forewent the opportunity to get receivers like a T. Higgins, like a Michael Pittman, or instead a Trey Sermon and a Damian Harris. Just unbelievable tunnel vision where I was so rigid. Just as you were consistent and calculated in your startup, you have to carry that consistency over into your actual league and the day-to-day there. You need to be honest with yourself once you get past that startup into the thick of things and you see the league landscape, who's producing points, who isn't. You be honest with yourself when you then go to make your first trade and every trade thereafter about what is my intention with this trade. Am I trading just to trade? Am I trading because I didn't like how I performed in week 1? We're not playing redraft again, remember? You need to be honest with yourself in each trade that you send, you receive. What is the upside of this trade for you? How does this get you closer to future sustainability and building something that is a force for not just 1 year? At least that's my wholehearted belief. I can't stand the one and done dine and dash, so to speak, of people that just play Dynasty for the 1 year. That's not what we're here to do. That's not what this channel is. You have to be honest with yourself. It starts with you. What are your motivations for a particular trade? You need to gauge how reactive, how reactionary you're being. A second lesson in any trade, you need to be proactive, not reactive, based on a specific performance of a specific player in their week 1, of your team's result in week 3. You need to be proactive in the sense that you're going to have to make bets. In order to realize the most value and the most upside, you've got to venture out and be brave from time to time. Otherwise, you're just positioning yourself to be behind the 8 ball, to lose out to the people that are willing to take on some risk. There truly are no 2 better trades, from my experience, that highlight what I have just preached to you all than these 2. Yes, you see that right. I traded away a first-round pick for Elijah Mitchell after week 1. Oh, it just pains me to say that. It's just so nails on a chalkboard, me even thinking I did such a move. But hey, I learned from that mistake. And here we are. Look, it took a while to learn. But the beauty is if you make the mistake, you learn from experience. You know quicker what not to do. I was so reactive as you could possibly be to a player's week 1 performance, a rookie running back at that, who didn't have significant draft capital, who we all know how the story ends and it's not good. Having learned that lesson of being so reactionary, I made a trade this past season, which ended up being the championship year, but it wasn't so quite clear early in the season. What was clear to me was I needed to get off of a Daniel Jones. And so this was a couple weeks into the year after he had, a really nice Cardinals game and then a little bit of, classic Giants struggle for a couple weeks. I was realizing I sensed I want to re-roll at the quarterback position. I want to pivot at the quarterback position. So I had to give up a Jamar Chase and a Tank Dell as the real sweetener of that deal. But in return, I got an A.J. Brown, a player of Jamar Chase's caliber in a fantasy sense, as we've seen the last couple seasons. And I get a second-round pick on top, an Algier throw in there, running back position, nice handcuff. And I got, of course, Jordan Love, who followed up his 20-plus weeks the really strong start to the year, a little bit of a fall to grace, a loss to the Lions. That's the timing of this. So I sensed a time to pounce. It was now or never. I needed to get some certainty, or really not certainty at all, but embracing the uncertainty that is of what Jordan Love could turn into, and really making a bet in the opposite direction, for example, of Daniel Jones. Do not fall for the sum of the parts. What I mean by that is you need to focus on the quality that you're getting in trades over the quantity. And it obviously all stems back to the early lessons of knowing your league itself, what is relevancy in terms of starting in your lineup. And for me, I made the asinine bet of let me get a injured Jameson Williams, who hadn't played it down in the NFL and obviously had to get eased into it, and then a whole multitude of issues outside of football, or I guess connected to football, plus a Darren Waller, often injured player, and we exchanged thirds, and I ended up giving up Jalen Waddle, guy that just produced near a fringe top 12 fringe wide receiver one season in his rookie year. It's inexplicable. I can't even really put a reasoning to justify that move. It was just ridiculous. The only way I can describe it is I fell for the allure of, well, I'm getting multiple pieces. But if you're giving away a certain quality of player, you need to get significant assets in return. Not just a lot of meh. You need still to replace great with really good. So how the hell did this guy end up winning based on those horrible history of certain moves? Well, look, for me, I believe in due diligence over talent, over skill as a fantasy manager, above all else. If you are engaged, if you follow what Schefter, what Rap Sheet, what they're saying, you follow this pre-draft noise, you follow the noise, you fade the noise. But if you're in tune, nonetheless, it goes a lot farther than you think. And luck starts to become less of a factor than you think. Back-to-back May 9ths and May 10ths of 2022 and 2023. For me, picked up two players. Isaiah Pacheco, Puka Nacua. Ever heard of him? I'm not claiming to be some incredible scout. What I am being is somebody that assesses where we are in the dynasty cycle. No points aren't going to be scored for months and months. So why am I holding a roster clogger like an Amir Abdullah? I know any RB on a 53, right? But why am I holding old, full of mold players when I can take a shot, invest in youth? The more engaged, the more due diligence that you apply, the more likely you are to find those Pukas and Pachecos way before everybody else. Relatively. I'm not saying I was the one to find them, but you get the message. The more you send messages, 200, 300, 212, 330. I have sent hundreds more messages, 330, just feeling out, well, let me get information. We are in an information gathering game. Don't even send offers from time to time. Just ask, send a message. Hey, what would it take you to sell player X? Oh, not quite interested. Doesn't matter the response. You can then counter with your own message, not as much a trade, because if you don't go 85% real, true offer, and you just throw absolute dog water out there, then you're not even deserving of a reply then. So that's only burning a potential bridge and putting you behind opportunity curves to being involved in future trades when they might become available. If you just send out, do some groundwork, lay some foundation of, hey, what do you think about this player? Or are you interested in X, my player? There is no secret sauce. You just have to show up. And so we talk about what goes hand in hand with the uncertainty is the ambiguous, but the ambiguous that's so unclear to many isn't going to be as unclear to you if you are engaged, if you're doing the due diligence. A little redundant there, but for example, if you're monitoring what's not just happening to your own team, but canvassing the league, seeing the standings, analyzing where people sit, but not being afraid to look at, well, where might they sit come regular season's end? And you look at playoff teams that might look like playoff teams at a specific point in time, and it might look like they're projected to be the number 1 seed, have the 112, and you throw them a David Montgomery on top of a couple seconds, and you get that first when you realize that they haven't really scored the most points, that they're not really the strongest top to bottom, especially in a max points for situation, like a team that might not be in that pole position, but is in the playoff position nonetheless, and you throw on what is pretty locked in to be the 201, and you get a Sam Laporta, you throw back a Jahmyr Gibbs, and you get that playoff, that late first, but you're looking at the max points for and the schedule that lies ahead of that team, and all of a sudden they miss the playoffs, and you get a lottery pick that turns into the 104, and that 112 that was projected becomes the 107 because you embrace the ambiguous, what's not so clear, because it doesn't mean it's only going to be negative. It doesn't mean that there's just one wholly unlikely outcome. You try to search for the positive by embracing the not so clear. Ambiguity equals opportunity in all areas of your life, not just Dynasty, but especially in Dynasty. Be convicted, not the criminal kind, not the court of law kind. What I mean is to have such unwavering, firm beliefs and rationale framework that you will abide by, that will take you to where you know you want to be, where you want to go. For me, it was embracing how I royally sucked for the first couple seasons of this league. But ultimately, acquiring rookie picks, capturing on biases that people severely undervalued rookie picks, allowing me to be in a position where I picked 101 for back-to-back years, where I got a Breece Hall, a Bijan Robinson, of course, incredible running back prospects, but going a step further as to be convicted to the point where I acquire the 102 as well, to then drafting a Mr. Garrett Wilson after Breece Hall, drafting a CJ Stroud after Bijan Robinson. Live according to your own personal convictions over other people's conventions every single day of the week. Let me know what you guys thought of this video in the comments, if you loved it, if you hated it. And as a reminder, look, I'm not trying to come across as this all-knowing, the best Dynasty player out there. I am just trying to shed perspective, some insights, some hard, difficult lessons learned to help you possibly not learn the hard way like I did. So have a great one, guys. I will see you in the next one.